Hello everyone, my name is Brendan Snyder. Thank you so much for joining me and welcome to another episode of Best of the Box. So as part of my music collection, I've got over 11,000 CDs. Now, it's broken down into a lot of different ways. You can see the wall that's behind me here, that actually holds 800 of them. But I've got 103 boxes like these. These are the banker style box that I have cut down in order to hold 90 CDs a piece in it. And I've got one of them right here that we're going to be going through in a little bit here. But 103 boxes that each hold 90 CDs a piece adds up to 9,270 CDs. So just in those boxes, that is my main way for storing things. I have done tours around my apartment showing off all that sort of stuff. I'll leave links in the description below to those kind of things if you're interested in them. But for this particular series, I thought we would focus on these boxes. I'd take a different one out each time and I'd go through it, revealing its contents. And we've got different things in them. Whole artist collections, maybe all of one genre type, latest purchases, could be collection by one particular record label. I've done some of those, and just so much more. There's so many different options for what these things could be. So before we dive into this one though, if you're new to my channel and haven't already hit the subscribe button, please click the button. Also leave a comment, hit like, all those things help support my channel. I would greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, by subscribing, you'll be able to stay up to date on all that's going on in the world of music, just like this, with Best of the Box, this one being Compilation Collection. So I've got my box here of 90 CDs. In fact, I'm going to take the lid off of it and toss that over there. Hold this up just so you can see. There we go. If you stick around to the end of this video, I'm going to have a photo of that will be on there. You can pause it and you can actually take a look at all of the individual contents much closer if you want to. But I got to put it down here in order so that I can get into it and show you what we've got. It's alphabetical. We literally start at A. We're going to go to Z with 90 of these. Now, compilations. So, you know, for years I really wasn't into compilations. I am an album guy. I prefer to put on an album and listen to it start to finish, hear the hits, hear the deep tracks, etc. But as time went on and I stopped listening to radio and things of that nature, sometimes I would be in the mood for a compilation. And I found that, you know, in a lot of ways, I think like you, sometimes we start with a compilation, a best of, a greatest hits from a band to get to know them. Then you find that you like them and you go and you buy all the albums. Then years later, you kind of miss that compilation because, you know, that has memories tied to it. So this box set here is partly that. This is a lot of older compilations, ones that are out of print that I had maybe back in the day that I'm now re-adding to the collection because I actually prefer some of these older compilations to the newer ones that are on the market that tend to overfill, you know, with too many songs. You know, 18, 20 tracks on a disc, jam packs it in, and it just doesn't have the same feel as some of those earlier ones. So that's what this is. That's why we're getting into it. First one out of here is cool one here, Aerosmith, Devil's Got a New Disguise. So this one here is actually I don't know if it's a European or a British edition of this, but it has the 18 tracks plus the 2 new ones, but it's got a different running order that's on it, and it really focuses across all of the eras of the band, which is why I like this one. But I didn't like the US edition of it, so I bought a European edition or British edition of it for that. So that's why I've got that one there. Now, jumping back here, some Alan Parsons Project. Really cool older compilation album here. I'll try and give you the years on these if I can find them quick enough when we're doing this stuff here. But this one here, 1983, 77 to 83, 12-track compilation on it. Big fan of Parsons Project. ARS, Atlanta Rhythm Section. This one here is, I think, the only compilation they've had out, but again, first one that I bought to try and see if I liked the band. They're a little on the mellower side of the southern rock thing, so it took me a bit to get into it, but, you know, I had heard Champagne Jam and a few of these others on here, but once I got this here, 17-track collection, very into that. Now, here's a band I'm very big into, and I've just been buying some additional things to fill in the catalog. I've got all the albums, but I picked up recently a couple of best of collections to just be able to throw on. This one here is simply called, you know, Best of April Wine. This one here, a good one, doesn't have the count on the back so I can tell you exactly how many hits, but some of these I find focus on either the older era when they were more of the blues rock or the 80s era. Some of them are ballads, some of them are a mix, and so forth. Of course, this one here titled All the Rockers. So this one here, a really cool collection. One of my favorites. I go to this one probably more than any of the other April Wine ones. All right, recently did a countdown of the top 10 ladies of 80s rock, and you guys were all complaining I did not include Pat Benatar. I love Pat Benatar. I've got a best of. I actually just don't have any of her individual albums, although I do have something on order that is going to change that you will see on Wednesday's New Music Finds. Bad Company 10 from 6. I first had this on a cassette. My older brother gave it to me. It's only 10 tracks, and I actually think there's one of the albums in here in particular they don't even take a track from, but you know, it's a nice spread of tracks. And when I grew up on, later on I have better, bigger, longer compilations, but that one there was just such a good one. This one here, Brownsville Station, I'd never owned anything by them. Of course, we all know the Motley Crue song that they covered, or not that they covered, but Motley Crue covered of Brownsville Station, Smoking in the Boys' Room. So I wanted some more, and I picked this up and found it was really good. Now the problem is it's really hard to get their albums, so I haven't been able to get any of the Brownsville Station. I have one from Brownsville. I think it's called Airmail, that is just outstanding. But yeah, so right now just sitting on that compilation. Best of Berlin, 80s sort of new wave band, good stuff there. That one's a hard one to come by too. Creedence Clearwater Revival Best of. Now this is a newer one, but it is a single disc collection, 24 tracks. So I grew up with the Chronicles, volumes 1 and volume 2, but I don't really like 2-disc compilations. I like single disc. So I think the bulk of everything you're going to see in here are single disc compilations. I just lean that way. I like the succinctness of the single disc. So this one here, even though it is a 24 track newer one, it does cover that whole era instead of being on 2 discs. So I like that one. Cream of Clapton, another one that you guys have often asked me about. I'm not the biggest fan of Clapton. I like some of the stuff. I like the hits. I like what he did with the Yardbirds and Derek and the Dominoes and stuff like that. So I do have it in the collection. I actually have one Eric Clapton album, but don't have a lot of his stuff. All right, Phil Collins, 12-ers, or 12-inch-ers, right? 12-inch singles, so vinyl editions of things. 6 tracks on this. This was a recent find, not really a greatest hits, but it did collect together stuff. And that was just one that I didn't even know that was out there, and one day I'm at their used record store and I came across it, and I was like, great, love to add this to the collection. J.J. Cale. Okay, so this is a newer comp, but this is one I'm starting with. I don't own anything by this guy. It's got 20 tracks. Now, we know Call Me the Breeze, Leonard Skinner covered that. After Midnight, Clapton covered that. What else do we have on here? Cocaine, another one that Clapton did. Or maybe After Midnight isn't him. I can't remember. But there's a number of these that I know. 3 or 4 at least of these that I know. So I picked up a collection of his in order to start diving into that. All right, Bob Dylan, Simply Called Dylan, single disc edition of the 4 CD box set, 18 tracks. I actually had that as a cardboard digipack, but didn't like it, so I switched out to that. Very Best of Deep Purple. This is one I've had the entire time since it's come out, but a lot better compilations have come since then. 15 tracks, and it does cover everything from the 60s up through the 80s. Now they've got compilations that go further than that, and I have a really good single disc collection. I think it's called Fire in the Sky that would outrank any of those. And this is one example of where a band doing a single disc compilation covering their entire career today actually did it right. Deep Purple. Duran Duran, Decade, my favorite. There's been other compilations and stuff out there. Again, I grew up with this on a cassette, so having it now back on CD. Here's an example of that later one, simply called Greatest. So I picked this one up later in the late 90s, 1998, 19 tracks. But you know what? This one just sounds better to me, the flow of it. I just like it better, so I go back to that. Eurythmics, Greatest Hits. This is a band I don't own any individual albums on. I like the singles, never really got into the albums, have listened to them, but they're just not my cup of tea, so I keep that collection there. You got to have that in there for sweet dreams, if nothing else. Very Best of the Eagles, a really great, succinct, single disc compilation. I think this one's 1994. I would like them to do another single disc compilation to catch up and put stuff on from the long road on it. That would be great. Best of Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Had never seen this one before when I found it. So not something I grew up on, but just a really cool. And I like the old art too. A lot of times the art of these older ones are just better. ELO. So here's one of the ones. I picked this up just recently because I think it was $3.99 at like my local Barnes and Nobles. So this is an older one here, but I've got the two later era ones, these, which are single disc collections, and I love these very much. 20 tracks, each have 20 tracks, so 40 tracks, volume 1 and 2. But just to try out what their previous greatest hits was like, the mix and the flow, I picked that up, so I have that in the collection now. Big fan of the Fix. Of, again, number of compilations I've got on these guys, and I do own quite a few of the albums, although their albums are getting really hard to find too. 12 tracks on this, a number of alternate versions and things of that nature are on it. Best of the Faces, got to have this in the collection. So here's a band that, again, picked this up, didn't know much about them, enjoyed that, and have since bought a box set of all their albums, plus like an actual box set that covers greatest hits and things of that nature and rarities and stuff. So it just started with a best of, and I'm sure you guys have experienced that a lot too. Foreigner. So now I started with the album Records, and I am going to pick that up on CD at some point. I got it on cassette, but this one here, The Very Best and Beyond, I always loved. This was the reunion when Lou Gramm came back into the fold and they recorded 3 new songs. So a lot of the compilations today that come out don't have new material. It's just the hits. But these older ones, when they came out originally, had new tracks associated with them. So in some cases, I want them for that. Best of from the Flock of Seagulls. Love the new wave guys there. Gotta have purchased those guys too. A good one from Fleetwood Mac. Couple unreleased here that were salvaged from the box set. Again, I've got other Fleetwood Mac ones. This one's kind of cool, and I don't own a Peter Frampton greatest hits, and this one here just a different type of one that was coming out, the A&M Back series, it says, and remasters, 14 track. So I bought it. First couple tracks on here are live versions, so it didn't really gel with me. I am looking for another Peter Frampton collection, so we'll see what I come across in the stores. Fabulous Thunderbirds greatest hits collection called Hot Stuff. Tough Enough is really the only song I ever knew from them, but when you know, I saw this, I wanted to try a little bit more. I haven't really gotten into it, but you know, there's always room to grow with these artists. Best of the J. Giles Band, a single disc collection that covers the whole period, 18 tracks. So that is one of the newer ones, but that stemmed from me picking up these two compilations. And so one with the older era and one with the stuff from the 80s. And so wanting something that just covered everything, that single disc, I did pick that up. So kind of strange sometimes where I do have the older ones and then I want a newer collection to balance things out. Golden Earring. This one here, great stuff. Twilight Zone. What else are they known for? Radar Love that White Lion did, and so much more. But I bought that because I think I knew those two songs, and since then I've picked up a couple albums by them. Not a lot, but I do like Moon Tan, and I think there's an album called Cut. It's the famous one with the bullet going through the card. Generation X, of course, featuring Billy Idol in there. Perfect Hits, 75 to 81. It's a 15-track compilation in here. Good stuff there, and I've got all the albums from them. Here we go, Harley Quinn, Greatest Hits, another great Canadian band like April Wine. This was hard to come by, but 14 tracks. I've got their albums, and it was just one of those things where I needed a little bit more in my collection, so I added that. Jimi Hendrix, Ultimate Hits. So this one here being the first Hendrix thing that I picked up at the time, and it's got 20 tracks on it. And if you're hearing that sound outside, I don't know if it's coming through. Big snowstorm going on right now while I'm filming this, so we got the plows out on the streets and stuff if you hear any of that in the background. This one here, this one is The Cry of Love. So again, had this one that I grew up on, but I wanted to try a compilation that first came out after he had passed. And so I got that in the collection. Sometimes it's just fun. I'm a fan of the art, the music, the packaging, everything. So sometimes, even if I own all of the material on this stuff, I want to get those and have those in the collection. I did that for The Doors. Weird Scenes, I can't remember the name of it, but it was the first compilation that came out after he had passed as well. Hooters, Hooterization, And We Danced, All the Zombies, Nervous Night, Great tracks again. So not quite new wave band, but mid-80s rock band, a little bit different, more in the pop vein than rock. Good stuff. NXS, the greatest hits. They've since surpassed this, and of course with the passing of Michael Hutchence, you know, you want to get a full collection that covers all the period that he was part of the band, because they released a couple more albums post this here, but this one had 2 new recordings at the time, and you can't get them any other way, so I had to pick that up and put that back in the collection. Here's a very cool one that I like far better than any of the others that are out. Iron Butterfly Best of Collection. So this one here is a Rhino Records 21 track collection. I love coming across these things, especially when I own all the albums. Jethro Tull Original Masters. Nothing special about this, but just a good single disc compilation of Jethro Tull. And brand new Jethro Tull album that just came out, the Zealot Gene. I can't recommend it enough. Did a full review of that. The Compact King Crimson, a cool best of from the 80s era of the band. My favorite period. That's what I got into the band on. Not with that compilation, but that lineup of the band and those albums, A Perfect Pair and stuff like that. Best of King's X. Now this is one I've had for a long time, and they haven't had any additional ones since then. This one's cool, 17 tracks. It's got 3 unreleased tracks at the time, a couple live versions, stuff like that on there. Totally worthwhile. Living Color's got a number of compilations, and this is just one different version that I've got. I've got another one here. So these two together, sorry, backwards on that. There you go. So 2 different ones here, a little bit different track listings and stuff. Music on CD reissued this one, and this one here, Epic Legacy. I think it's still available. So we've got, both of them are 17 tracks, and I have to say probably like this one the best, but yeah, so a lot of this is just, you know, you guys have probably seen them too at your used record stores. You'll find these things for $1.99 or so, and so I'm picking these things up and adding them in. Here's an old one. Nils Lofgren, the best. So I first had this on vinyl. I think I picked up the vinyl for like 10 cents. This is back before vinyl got really popular. 10 tracks released back in the day, 1979 it looks like. Oh, actually, well, 85. Could be that this is, the CD is 85 and the record was 79, but that's before I really knew who he was. I think I knew him from Bruce Springsteen, and I might have known him from Neil Young and stuff like that, but I didn't know much about him, so picking that up was a great way to start. John Mellencamp, The Best That I Can Do. Love this one, had this one, got rid of it when I got a 2 CD one, then I missed this one, went back and bought it again. And I do have a number of those in here. Here's a recent one that I picked up, and when I say recent, it's probably about a year old, but the Moody Blues Greatest Hits. So this one, didn't know much about the Moody Blues, knew a couple things here and there, didn't really think I liked too much of them. Bought this, put it on, start to finish, the 12 tracks on there, I loved, I fell in love with it, ended up going out and buying a bunch of Moody Blues stuff, so that one was a cool one to get. Best of Mountain, again a band that I've always known a couple tracks on, but never a lot, so I picked this up, and again, ended up going out and buying a 5-disc box set containing all of their albums. There we go, Best of Dave Mason. You've probably seen this one recently. Showed this in a recent New Music Finds. This was one where I always seem to forget that he was part of Traffic, but I first knew of him when he was part of Fleetwood Mac. So I saw that, I picked it up, actually enjoyed it, and I've since picked up some more Dave Mason. Best of Moxie, another Canadian band here. God, I forget who the singer is. I want to say it's Loverboy. He, yeah, it doesn't unfortunately say on the inside. So I'm pretty sure, though, lead vocalist of Loverboy sang on their final album, and then, of course, later was in Loverboy, but something to that nature. Mother's Finest, very best of from them. This one here is something I got into through Rock Candy Records and just wasn't expecting to like it as much as I was. They're more on the funk rock side of things, but really good. Yngwie Malmsteen and Anthology, Japanese 1994 to 1999 collection. So I also like compilations that are later than other things that are going on. So 1994 to 1999, different era than the stuff that we would have gotten from his 80s output. Molly Hatchet Greatest Hits. And this one here has been a reissue, so they added onto this one 3 additional tracks. So that's kind of cool. Eddie Money, this one here again, first compilation that I had on him. He's got other ones, 16 tracks on this one. It's just got all the good stuff. Some previously unreleased promo versions of tracks are included. single disc greatest hits of Steve Miller, not the typical one, a 20-track edition, remastered, covering up through, I think, at the 1990 album that he had out. So before he did the blues stuff, but basically covering everything that he's done as original stuff. Night Ranger, greatest hits. I've waited and waited for these guys to put out a better one, but they haven't, so I finally broke down and bought it. Not disappointed with it, just wanted better packaging, something that's a little fuller than that. Oingo Boingo Anthology. So here's a double disc one. I don't have many of these, but this one here's got a bunch of rarity stuff on it, and it's just very cool. And again, not into the digipacks all that much, but this one is just done beautifully. Love Oingo Boingo. Overkill, another 2-disc compilation, best of. It covers a lot of the later period, but it has live versions of earlier tracks on it. They don't have a lot of compilations. In fact, I only know of 2. All right, we're down. We got 30 left to go. I'll try to speed this up. The Police, Every Breath You Take, right? Classic one. I grew up on this one. I don't like the other ones because they add these weird remixes, Puff Daddy, this, that, and the other thing on them, or they mix Sting in with it. This one here is just The Police. The Pretenders, the singles, good collection here. Had an unreleased track on it, I Got You, Babe, The Time. This Iggy Pop one is really good. Another 2-disc one that I have, but this one spans his whole career, and whole career up to the period, of course. But it also has the Stooges, Iggy and the Stooges. It's got solo material. It's got all these different, guest appearances and stuff in it. Just very good stuff. Cool one from Robert Palmer, Addictions Volume 1. All the greatest hits and stuff from him. Then we got this one, Jean-Luc Ponty. Picked this one up recently. This one here, hard to see the date on it. Somewhere around 2000 it looks like. It is a Rhino collection. But John Anderson of Yes and Jean-Luc Ponty partnered up and made an album together. That's where I first learned of him. And I love his stuff. I've since bought a bunch of his albums. But again, sometimes you just want to throw on a best of and kind of hear a little bit of everything. Graham Parker best of here. This one was an interesting one. It only covers from 88 to 91. I think it covers 2 albums, but just an interesting period. Here's Queen's Greatest Hits, just a nice single disc collection. So I bought this one, and it is one of the newer ones. It adds 3 tracks even to the original that came out. But the one that I grew up on was Classic Queen. That's the first collection. That's the first thing outside of it had Queen Innuendo. Then I went out and bought this because unfortunately Freddie Mercury died the day after I bought the Queen album. So I went out, I bought Innuendo. I was loving it, hearing it all over the radio. I wake up the next morning and I hear Freddie Mercury has passed away. Never forget that. Okay, Tom Petty, Greatest Hits. So this one here, I went back and bought this one because of the 2 new tracks that are on it, Mary Jane's Last Dance and Something in the Air. So Mary Jane's Last Dance becomes a big hit. That appears on future compilations, but Something in the Air does not. So you got to keep that one because the newer versions of this have replaced Stop Dragging My Heart Around with Stevie Nicks. And I don't really like that. That was one of her songs. It was not one of his. So it features her on it more than him. Breaks the flow of the Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, in my opinion. Very best of Todd Rundgren. Got to have some of his in the collection. Not the biggest fan of his. He's definitely a little out there on some of the things, but I like Utopia. He fronted a version of The Cars when Rick Ocasek didn't want to come back. Stuff like that. He, of course, produced Bat Outta Hell and a number of great albums. So I'm still working on getting into them. Rare Earth. All-white funk band, or at least that was sort of their claim to fame to start. I think various members over the years have been of different races and whatnot, but heard something in a television show, fell in love with it, and ended up buying a bunch of their albums too. That was in the phase with Mother's Finest, another funk rock band. Roxy Music, here's an interesting Atlantic Years collection spanning from 73 to 1980, just something different. They're a band too that I've tried to get into a number of times, really haven't found a footing for them yet. Here's another compilation of theirs that I have. Bob Seeger, First Greatest Hits, just one I didn't own. I owned the volume 2 of this, and it actually took a while to find that. I don't know why, and then all of a sudden it seems like it's now in print everywhere. Billy Squire, I think this is called 16 Strokes. I had this one back in the day and then got rid of it for some reason because I think I have a 2 CD compilation, or should I say anthology of his. Best of Sting, this one too, same thing, have future versions of his. But so going back recently, I've been buying these because there's new tracks from Sting on there. Here's a cool one, Street Heart, another Canadian band. A while back, about a year or so ago, I was deep into all bands Canadian, things Canadian that I could get into. And I've got some Rock Candy Records reissues, Street Heart, April Wine, and others. And so I picked up these compilations to just enjoy, pop in one right after the other, these cool Canadian bands. All right, Joe Satriani, an anthology here, a 2-CD one. Found this one for $1.99 at my local record store. That was an interesting find to get that in there. All right, Starship, cool compilation. So, you know, I've got the 2-CD version that does Airplane, Jefferson Airplane, Jefferson Starship, Starship. But this one here, again, had a couple new tracks on it, so wanted to have those back in the collection. So a lot of these I owned previously, pulling back in. 38 special. So everything I'm pulling out of this box right now is recent ones. A few of these are older ones I've had, but I would say that might be maybe 10% of this, and the rest of this is all recently new stuff I've purchased in the last year or so. So that's why it's in a box here. It's just starting off that way. Talking Heads, popular favorites, 2-CD one. I've got a box set on these guys, love them. Decided to pick this up. That was a small price on that. Here's a recent one I think you've seen, The Tubes, a best of. So I had an older compilation, never had this one, didn't really know much about them. Popped this one on, didn't know I knew the song She's a Beauty. That comes on, and I'm like, oh my God, I know this song. And that's kind of fun too with these compilations. You buy one thinking you're just going to explore a band you've heard of but don't know anything on, and then you find out you know something. Best of Pat Travers. Picked this one up to explore him, then bought a 5-CD box set. Of course, he's known for songs like Boom Boom, Out Goes the Lights, Snortin' Whiskey, other good stuff on there. But I had seen covers of his material, never heard him, so I picked that up. Steve Wynwood, Chronicles. It's an early compilation in the mid-'80s, I think. 1987, I think, is the year on this. So missing Roll With It, the album that came out in the late 80s, maybe 1990. Best of Wishbone Ash, good stuff here, same sort of thing. Seen those albums everywhere, never knew what they were or who they were, so I picked up the compilation. Joe Walsh, Greatest Hits, little did he know. Again, there's bigger compilations, but this one here covering from, his early projects and stuff that he did on up through solo material and everything. Just good to get James Gang and him together. Yardbirds collection here. This is a volume 1 saying 64 to 66. And then this, the final one, the Best of ZZ Top, a nice older 10-track compilation. I've got the greatest hits from the early 90s, but there you go. That is my collection of compilations. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Maybe you saw some stuff in there you hadn't seen either. Now you can go out and search for those things, but also just a good reminiscing time on all of these great collections and things that we grew up with, things that started our love for a lot of these great bands. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that, and if you did, please remember to comment, like, and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts. Take care, have a great day, and I'll talk to you all real soon. Bye-bye, everyone.